Okay, this is the second time of me trying to record this video because, firstly, the fucking recording file corrupted for some reason. I just like hit record and then I spoke for 20 minutes and then it just like wasn't there. I don't know. Maybe it'll happen this time again. I don't know. Second thing, also, there's a party upstairs. I live in this huge housing complex, and yeah, there's a party upstairs and it's pretty loud and they're like jumping up and down. So if you hear any sort of symptoms of an earthquake, like vibrating fucking, like if my guitar starts going, it's okay. It's okay. This is student life. Okay, this is a peek behind the curtains. So I wanted to talk to you today about some books that I've been reading that have excited me, that have piqued my curiosities, plural. Um, and yeah, it's broadly from like sort of the beginning of summer, um, sort of like, well, yeah, I guess June, July-ish. I can't really remember. But yeah, so let's do this. First book I want to talk about is Black Elk Speaks, John G. Nyhart. This is a book about an Ogallala Sioux medicine man, Native American dude, one of the last of his people to sort of live his like uh, fucking like original life, like natural. What is people had been doing for thousands of years before settlers came and sort of found gold in the hills, and yeah, ruined their lives forever. Not forever. Maybe there's redemption. But yeah, it's very interesting look at. It's basically from his perspective. So he speaks to the author, John G. Nyhart. So Black Elk speaks to John G. Nyhart, and it's very detailed. So he speaks of his upbringing, when he realized he sort of had this divinity, like when he started having these visions, which is very interesting to see from a sort of current perspective. When I'm sort of trying to like, I was trying to pathologize him. Like, does he have? I mean, he probably has schizophrenia, right? Like, he just passes out sometimes, or maybe it's like fever dreams. He passes out, and then he dreams that he's like flying above and seeing his ancestors and these like horses and rainbows and like, you know, and they're telling him what to do and like how to save his society, like how to save his culture from the trash heap. It's very interesting. He also has an incredibly like weird life, like crazy life. At some point, he ends up traveling with like Buffalo Bill to America, to Europe from America. It's like what? And he falls in love with this like French girl. The French girl falls in love with him, and and then he has a vision at the dinner table with her parents. It's like what the fuck? It's super interesting, and at some points, flag. At some points, you get into the weeds of sort of the mythology, which I thought was really interesting. I know other people have said that it's sort of maybe a bit tedious. I never thought it was tedious. I always thought it was just like, yeah, like what? This is so different, so interesting. Good. Next book I want to talk about is a little poetry collection called Grain by John Glenday. He's a Scottish poet. I've read quite a lot of Seamus Heaney before this, and I thought this was quite reminiscent of him. He's Scottish, Seamus Heaney's Irish. I guess they're sort of sister traditions in that sense. I thought the poems in the beginning of the book were much better than those towards the end. Partly maybe because of my, I don't know, John Glenday fatigue. I don't know, but yeah, specifically, I really liked this one. Imagine you are driving, which I read intoxicated with my friends, and then that was the first time I read it. I read it with them, and then after like hungover, I tried to parse it again. But here we go. It goes to imagine you are driving. Imagine you are driving nowhere with no one beside you, with the empty road unraveling and raveling in sympathy as the wheel turns in your hands. On either side, the wheat fields go shimmering past in an absence of birdsong, and the sky decants the shadows of the weather from itself. So you drive on, hopeful of a time when the ocean will rise up before you like dusk, and you will make landfall at last, some ancient, long forgotten mooring, which both of you, of course, will recognize. Though, as I said before, there is no one beside you, and neither of you has anywhere to go. So, I mean, this poem, full of contradictions, very strange. You're sort of searching for this meaning in contradiction. You're trying to make sense of all of the things you're going. But I thought you were driving. Yeah. So apparently, I clicked pause there, and then I recorded the rest of the video, and then that got stupid. stupid it again. So maybe I have to like record small segments. I don't know. Party is raging above. So the next book I want to talk about is The English Patient, which is this sort of dreamy novel. It's basically about these four people who meet in an Italian villa at the end of World War II, and this English patient who is sort of a burned guy found by Bedouin in the Libyan desert after falling from the sky in a plane. He's charcoal. He's just burned to a crisp. And the book basically is about how much we can know about each other. And this dreamy tone, really amplifies that feeling. Like, that we can never really, how close, like, I study physics, and, atoms, there's sort of a potential. And they're attracted to each other, but they're also repelled. There's an inherent repulsion. So, however close they want to get, they're always repelled by each other. And so it's really something, we're sort of the same. How well can we actually know each other? And structurally, this book, there are two things that I found interesting. The first being on the chapter level, sort of. The structure, really, you have paragraphs, and then you have line breaks and page breaks. The page breaks, the line breaks can be of different sizes, actually. So you can see here, like, you have this size, but then you also have, let's see if I can find it. Here, for example, it's bigger. All of this creates sort of a stilted feeling, or feeling you have to sort of, the reader has to sort of discover why Michael Ondaatje sort of has chosen to put these different breaks between his scenes. And to me, this sort of adds to this dreamy aesthetic, like you're in a dream, you're trying to understand, like, where the hell am I? Like, what is going on? You're trying to reflect, like, yeah. I mean, sometimes you're not aware that you're dreaming, and things are off in some slight way. And maybe this is sort of similar. Like, the structure is a bit esoteric, enigmatic, perhaps. And so, just as the characters are enigmatic to each other. So you can't really understand it, and it creates this sort of nice structure. I think about it as sort of like a river with all these different sized stones in it. You have these pebbles which like clink across the bottom of the river, and these are your tiny little line breaks. But then you also have these massive boulders which the river froths over, and that's your chapter headings. And these all create this nice little texture in the river. Where you have these, and then and they have this waterfall. So yeah, it's interesting texture. Also on the sentence level, you have they're starting to jump up there. They're jumping on top of my head. And this building is built in the 70s. It's like just complete cement. So sound travels like a motherfucker. Anyway. Okay, I switched my phone because my computer was being weird. But yeah. So yes, English patient. Yeah. Also on the sentence structure, I was talking about the river before. On the sentence structure, you also have something interesting happening, where you have these sentences, and the tails of the sentences are sort of chopped off. So I say, like, Olaf picks up the teacup, holding it in his right hand, and it's as if in the book, Ondaatje often puts a full stop where the comma is, and this sort of leaves a tail, and this sort of acts like a metaphor for the characters in the novel, because they themselves are sort of tales of their own past, and the other characters are trying to learn about them. Who are you really? This is what the novel, like the central question of the novel. What are the limits of our knowledge of other humans, really, of other people? How much can we know about each other? And so they themselves are these tales, and they're affected. They're sort of this full stop. They're separated from their past, but they're all probing. They're all going back. I mean, the narrative jumps back to the past, but they're separated. So do we really know them? Are they who they say they are? It's really interesting. There are also some really supple metaphors and similes in this book, which this next book also shares. In The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. Yeah, similar tone actually, But this book takes place in India, in Kerala, which follows a family, and an affluent family, and a tragedy that happens in their family, and the repercussions that has for all of the characters involved. Really, the central characters are the two twins, known as twins, and the guilt that follows them. They are sort of made to think that they caused this tragedy, that they were the cause, and that they are to be punished for the rest of their lives, to feel shame for this. And because of this sort of irrationality at the heart of the novel, it's as if the narrative, in something that is really an interesting stylistic choice. It's this repetition of certain phrases throughout the novel. We accrue certain phrases. Almost these phrases are sometimes sound like it's as if you overhear your parents in the other room arguing, and it's like this child, as a child, and as a child you're sort of repeating these, like, what is this? This is not something I'm necessarily party to, but you're repeating it to yourself, almost a comfort to yourself, right? Because you don't understand what's going on. And in the same way, this novel is sort of repeating to itself what already happened, as sort of a scaffolding, a structure to hold the narrative together. Because it really is irrational in so many ways to the characters, right? It doesn't make any sense. They love, and all they get is guilt in return. Of course, there are characters who are manipulative, but they also just wanted love, and they wanted connection, but they weren't granted that, and so yeah, it's as if it's trying to make sense of itself. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting. The novel I'm currently reading is Don Quixote. I just started it. I'm like 100 pages in. It's really interesting so far. It's about this sort of mad, delusional Don Quixote, who believes he's a knight errant, and with his friend Sancho Panza, and they travel around. But what I think is interesting so far is that although he is seen as delusional by the other characters are sometimes equally as delusional, or equally as stuck in their imagination or their own sort of worldview. For example, there are two instances I can think of, like one where they some shepherds are arguing over a woman who's very beautiful, and they all believe that they love them, they love her, and they all believe that she loves them, or that she's scorning them somehow for not loving them. But in this way, they're also deluded, right? I mean, she doesn't love them. She wants to be alone with the shepherdesses and be alone in the woods and whatever. She doesn't care about them. But they themselves believe, oh no, she loves me really. She's just not saying it, or blah, blah, blah. So, although Don Quixote is an obvious example, we all have some aspect of him in us. We get lost in our own reality a little bit. The same happens when they're staying in an inn, Sancho Panza and Don Quixote, and for whatever reason there's a scuffle in the dark, complete dark, and they can't see each other, and so the characters sort of make assumptions about whom they're sort of grappling with. And again, yeah, when we, in this darkness, in this lack, we place our world, we project ourselves onto the world. And so Don Quixote sees this enchanted some enchanted thing of the castle or whatever, and other people. He also believes another woman is a princess and not this servant. But other characters too also see this. They don't know they don't know who they're dealing with in the dark. It's not only Don Quixote; it's the other characters too. And so we're all as lost, and we're all projecting ourselves onto reality as much as Don Quixote is. And so although we may laugh at Don Quixote, he is really just as human as the rest of us. I mean, he's mad, but we're all mad, really. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, that's all I want to say. Catch you in the next one.